What happened 4 years ago?
Nothing.
Because the reason it makes me think of that is, recruitment. These are the people here, and we know, many of them are who had turned on you. Many of the people you had recruited.
Well, they hadn't really. So the business grew. We were a small business. We had 20 odd shops in the UK. We had a big wholesale distribution where we called all the people that sold the product trustees of the brand. The people that sold our collections into their stores were guardians, and the consumer was a beneficiary of the product. So we had this entire insurance blanket over the way we traded. And about 30 years ago, the business really, really started to take off. From that little germ of an idea, I created a shirt.
Yeah, do you want to show it?
Yeah, why don't I show that shirt? I don't know if I've got one here.
Oh, just throw it.
Yeah, they can just... I created a shirt.
This is the first shirt, is it?
It was one of the very, very first shirts. It was one of the material was really what it was all about. It was that one's just a plain small mini check, but it was the fabrication. That shirt, we then ended up making, it was beyond belief, really. It was the time of acid house, garage parties, late 80s, and we must have sold 3 million. And then we started to make a lot of money. And I didn't have a problem making a lot of money. I then thought to myself, what's the next step? We had about 20 stores. We were turning over 14 million pounds, which wasn't nowadays when you think that's not a lot of money, but we were making just over 4 million pounds profit. And there was the opportunity to go public being going on the stock market, opening the opportunity to institutions to buy the shares and the man in the street.
Scrutiny as well.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes with that. And Ted Baker went public and we floated the company. It's called a float, an IPO. We floated the business and the company suddenly became worth 58 million. Okay, and I owned 40% of the business. So suddenly I became wealthy. I came from just a everyday, comfortable background. I lived in co-fosters and my parents, saved up to go on holiday once a year, and we just had a nice living. And suddenly I was wealthy, and I left the money in the business. I took some off the table, but I left most of the shareholding in the business. And suddenly I had to then recruit finance directors, and suddenly get very, very serious. The actual rigmarole and process of going public is very, 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 the long form reports, you wouldn't fit them on 2 of these desks. It was verification, what you could say and what you couldn't say. And it's very restricting. You had to give results every quarter. You had to meet shareholders twice a year. And we were public for 30 years. And I'm very proud to say we only ever had 1 profit warning.
You said to me, ask you whatever, because I think you're open to, you want to be asked this stuff. Because
absolutely.
So 4 years ago.
A bit more, 5
years ago.
Yeah.
It was during the Me Too movement. Lots of people were being sort of called out. And I guess it was almost a strange story because the other ones were sort of this cut and dry. A lot of them were cut and dry. This is what this person did. That's what that person did. With you, it was this kind of strange thing that happened. And then you were out. And it was to do with hugging mostly. You're a hugger. So what was going on there?
Okay. So I suffer with a condition, which I still have, but it's now managed beautifully, called psoriatic arthritis. My hands were incredibly painful. My hands were swollen like you wouldn't believe. If any of my old friends or colleagues saw me now, they wouldn't believe my hands as they are now, because I used to sit there all day long. My hands were 3 times the size. I'd use a system called magnetic resonance, MBST. In fact, it was so amazing. I bought the technology from Germany, and we're now helping other people with arthritic and inflammatory diseases. I couldn't use my hands. So I remember there was a guy called Philip who was running a retail group. And I'll tell you the name of the company. It was Moss Bros. He had the most devilish handshake ever. He used to come in at an angle and shake my hand. And I remember going back to my finance director and saying, that's it. I can't shake hands anymore. It is just too painful. I'm going to create a hug culture. Because I can't shake hands. What am I going to do when I meet people? I can't say, I'm just going to give them a nice little hug. Everybody in the fashion industry, in institutions in the city, my PLC board knew that I hug people hello. They weren't forced to hug me, for goodness sake. I can't shake hands. Do you want to hug hello? If they didn't, that's fine. Well, I went round saying to people, hug me or I won't be your friend. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
There was a hug circle in the...
By my desk, I created, because I didn't have my own office, there was no offices at Ted Baker. There was they ingrained into the floor hug zone. It was a hug circle that people were feeling sad. They could hug each other. They could hug me. And when celebrities came in, I've got a famous one of Shaq.
Shaq O'Neal.
Yeah, Shaquille is in there, right, with his girlfriend. Have a hug. It was an instant piece. It was a brand piece. It was nonsense. Every PLC director, all the people that should have been with us, everybody hugged. Do you not hug people? Guys go in the pub, they go, hello, and they have a group hug or whatever. It was totally nothing. The issue was, it was not about hugging because I couldn't find anything else. I will tell you the story. I've never told the story. I'm now going to reveal what brought down Ted Baker. There was an online petition. I didn't even know what an online petition was. I was 64 years of age. I just about could work an iPad. I never used a computer. Andrew, I built this £1 billion business. I never had a computer. People used to give me paperwork. I'd read it, but I didn't generate anything. And to this day, I do not have a computer. I had PAs, my friends, colleagues that helped me, and I did the business and was the extra, never the difference.
What was the name of this website they would...
Organise.
Yeah.
What they did, they managed to speak to somebody that was upset with the company, not particularly upset with me. It was somebody that could be in the business or had left the business to write a story. And the story was Ray Kelvin hug people. And that was it. They created a petition. I've spoken to lots of people because I'm still in touch with hundreds of people at Ted Baker who worked at Ted Baker who have now all lost their jobs, their lives more than their jobs. And no one signed it. Very few people signed it. People that signed it were anonymous people that anonymous people out in the ether. No, very few people, if anybody. I don't know anybody signed it. Mind you, they're not going to tell me I signed a petition against you, Ray. But a few hundred people signed it in the world. I have on my mobile phone 20 signatures that have been faked. So there was a girl that a woman worked at Ted Baker for a very long time. I won't disclose her name. She allowed me to see where she was thanked 20 times for signing something she'd never even signed. So they couldn't get the numbers, so they started signing themselves. And my board ran. My PLC board ran away from... So just to give you a feeling of the structure, when you run a public company, you have to have a board that sits at the top that makes sure that we're conducting ourselves professionally and in accordance with all stakeholders. I've known those people, some of them, for over 33, 34 years, the chairman 15 years. And they didn't have any executive powers in the business. They just made sure that we did the right things for all the stakeholders in the company. And I was always absolutely, you couldn't have had anybody that was more compliant. So it was all about compliance and the rules and regulations. And as soon as this all appeared in the newspapers, they weren't there for us, weren't there for the company, let alone me. And there was one person on the board who had her own agenda and engaged with Organise, and then put herself out there as being the person that, I mustn't say too much, but it was very, very, very upsetting.